Hi, friends, family, and other creatures of the sea. My name is Jason Beckenham, and welcome to another episode of Tableau Next Extensions for Industry. The industry we're going to do today is insurance, and specifically, we're going to be looking at the dashboard that's on the screen right now for our insurance wholesaler, specifically deep diving into their advisors. Now, just a reminder, these dashboards are a mock scenario that my colleague Jeff and I came up with. So if you have any feedback, if you think we hit the mark, please let us know in the comments. And with that being said, let's get into it. All right, so as that insurance wholesaler persona, if I was looking at this dashboard, I can see this headline insight is drawing my attention. This is just an insight that is created by AI about the entire book of business. But really, traditionally, I also have my standard metrics that I can look at and very easily just understand who's doing really well by average opportunities, who's doing really well by total leads, as an example, across my book of business and all my advisors. On the right hand side of my table here, I have a list of all of my advisors, and I can see what segment they're in, what's their pipeline and performance metrics, as well as their engagement. Right? But specifically, if I saw, you know what, Chris Jones, I can see your engagement score is quite poor. If I was to select you, this is what I really like about Tableau Next Extensions, is being able to add the UI that you need specifically for this persona, in this case, our wholesaler. So I can do things like analyze, I can do things like creating a case, scheduling a review, or just launching a flow in general. Let's start with analyze. So what Analyze does for us is it actually opens up an agent for us and has created a prompt. This prompt is just suggested, but it's actually very powerful to give people a lead-in prompt to show them insights, and then we can riff with the AI, right? We can add our own questions if we want to. In this case, I've structured this insight as a key finding, performance comparison, recommended actions, right? And we're really comparing Chris against other advisors in our book here, right? One thing that we're suggesting that we do is let's pivot from volume to engagement and reallocate 20% of time currently spent on administrative opportunity management into direct high value outreach to the existing lead set to lift his engagement score above 50 by month end, right? Okay, this is a mock scenario, right? You would have more pointed recommended actions for your business. Something that you might not have noticed too is as you select an advisor and you hit analyze, these next best actions on the left-hand side of our screen are actually being refreshed, right? And it is calling out an insight, points about that insight, and then it's providing next best action buttons that we can do in order to act on that insight. So for example, maybe I want to schedule a review with Wilson based off of this insight. This really just kicks off a flow that I can then use to as a scheduler, right? This is a separate application now that I am calling. Tableau is not necessarily managing all the logic for this. It is just passing information from our data into that other system. But now I can actually do all those things like scheduling a meeting directly from my dashboard, so I don't need to swivel chair to other applications, saving me a ton of time. Now, another thing I want to call out is, let's say for Chris, I really want to create a case, right? A case can really be defined in many ways in Salesforce, but I'll just say help with engagement, right? So what I'm doing right here is I'm writing a vague statement about these insights, and I'm going to use now Salesforce's Agentforce case creator in order to map this vague description to a Salesforce case. Now, cases require a certain amount of fields, like a subject, what's the priority, what's the reason, and what's the description. Agentforce was able to fill those in for us based off of the insight, based off of the advisor, etc. I find this super powerful. And again, it's just another example of using another platform, in this case, Salesforce, directly from our dashboard. Now, I mentioned Salesforce specifically because Tableau Next actually sits on the Salesforce platform. What you can see right here is I've actually built that case out. Because we're on the same platform of Salesforce, we have quite a few advantages as it relates to setting this up and using it, right? So I really like that little piece as well. Finally, another thing I want to mention is in this agent, if I decide that I really like what's happening with this report, I can actually create a report off of this that I can then think about exporting or sharing that has all my visualizations, all my narratives, and then key performance indicators. I have my advisor comparison, right? So I can see David, he's doing really well for pipeline, but his engagement is poor. Jane, she's near the bottom for pipeline, but her engagement is poor. And likewise, pipeline is about the same for everyone here that I'm looking at, right? So there's not much of a difference. Understanding that at a glance is super helpful. And based off of this report, I'm also prompted with some next best actions. Super powerful here. This is now a report that I have that I can close or I can export if I need to. Finally, when it comes to dashboarding, a lot of people like to also have the option to have a tabular view that they can also download as a CSV. This tabular view is super easy to understand. However, there is a hidden gem in it. If I was looking at Jessica here and I select her, again, I am showing off those actions, right? So we can kick off all those actions. But in this case, we're doing it from a table view, which some people do actually prefer. Some people like to see, these insights, and they love to have those next best actions actually fed to them. And some companies are worried about AI and, regulations and getting this past their AI council. Well, we can get you started, right, with a table right here for analyze, create case, right? Get started with that. Just workflow, right? There's not much AI going on here. And then you can graduate to our Tableau agent insights right here, right? So there's a bit of I would say, maturity curve that you can decide where you're at. Okay, now all this dashboard is super powerful and it can be super customized to your workflows, to your actions, to the metrics you want to show. But I do want to talk about the secret sauce behind all of this, and that is trusted data. Trusted data is really what's going to make or break your application. The Tableau Next Enterprise platform right here is able to model your data from different SQL databases like Redshift, Snowflake, Databricks, Google BigQuery, you name it. We're able to take that data as well as your CRM Salesforce data, marry it all together, and build out custom metrics that can then be leveraged by your AI, right? Some of these metrics we saw in our dashboard, they are feeding our dashboard and ensuring that AI has the best chance of actually providing trusted information, right? So together, a semantic model, this Tableau Next semantic model, the Tableau Next extensions, and then that workflow engine of Salesforce is a super powerful value proposition to actually go from business intelligence to full-blown applications that can not only get you that insight, that proactive insight, or that drill down insight you've been always wanting, but it can take that insight and provide a next best action, or you can let the user decide on that next best action. So I love it. If you think we hit the mark with this use case, please let us know what you liked. If you think we could have done something different, I'd love to actually incorporate that into the Tableau Next extension. So please write it in the comments. And with that, I'd like to thank all of you for listening. Thank you so much. On to the next one.